URAUME vs HAKARI was one of the many misses that took place during the Shinjuku Showdown arc, the final arc of Jujutsu Kaisen. These two characters garnered a lot of attention and a lot of hype. URAUME being Sukuna's handmaiden, everybody wanted to see them in a fight. And for HAKARI, he had all the buildup from the Culling Games. His fight against Kashimo, that was arguably one of the best fights that came out of the Culling Games, all the way down to his amazing domain expansion. Let's not forget the Blasian allegations. I'm not sure where that came from, but if you're on Twitter, you see that a lot. HAKARI, just like Yuta, became a fan favorite character used in every power scaring debate that you can ever imagine, led to Jujutsu Kaisen's most iconic power debate, Yuta versus HAKARI. The fandom was mostly excited because of the conversation that started off between HAKARI and URAUME. We thought we were going to get some more insight on a concept that Gege played around a lot with in Jujutsu Kaisen. That concept is what it means to become a monster. On chapter 245, during the start of their fight, URAUME states the sorcerers of this modern era have an intense obsession with remaining human. They so desperately want to hold on to their humanity, constantly telling themselves to hold back from destroying what would be easily crushed with their overwhelming power. It is that human fear of being alone that makes them weak. He continues by looking at HAKARI, saying, "But you are different. You don't share their fear. I will no longer think of you as human. I will destroy you with the full extent of my power." I still get chills from reading that first part of that conversation. The fact that URAUME viewed HAKARI as being free from the shackles of trying to remain human and not using the full extent of his powers, just imagine if this fight would have continued on. We would have gotten a better insight in HAKARI's mindset that makes him stand out as if he's a monster to a character like URAUME, who was the handmaiden to the pinnacle of what a monster is. Somebody that lost all their humanity and became the king of curses, no other than Sukuna. I know based off the beginning of the video, a lot of people are going to clap back and say that it isn't really Gege's style to go in depth into the stuff and concepts that he introduces into his series. Now, becoming a monster wasn't really a big concept in the story of Jujutsu Kaisen, and that's where I'm going to have to disagree. But instead of just saying I disagree, I'm going to give you a long list of examples where this theme or concept, or whatever you want to call it, took place in the story. I'm going to go by characters because I think it will be easier to digest this information. So I want to start off with the greatest character of the new generation, and that's Gojo. Gojo was first met with this issue of becoming a monster after defeating Toji and carrying Riko's dead body. He ascended to a power level that even Toji recognized him of being a monster. And at this moment, he was about to lose his humanity when he asked Geto if he should kill the Star Religious members clapping away at Riko's death. This fork in the road would have changed Gojo's character forever if Geto would have told him to kill the Star Religious group members, because Geto was his moral compass at that time. His friendship with Geto is what he used to cling on to his humanity, because all his life he was viewed as a power, not a person. And even when their friendship ended, he then clinged on to his humanity by training his students and hoping that one day they'll get strong enough to replace him. To the point, we all know if Gojo would have killed those Star Religious members in that room at that very second, he would have became an evil character, or maybe a morally gray character willing to sacrifice humans just like Geto. And we all know how the story would have went if Gojo finally walked down that dark path. Strong believer, if Gojo wasn't holding on to his humanity so much, a lot of things in the story wouldn't have taken place, especially the Shibuya incident. If he would have used his full power against the disaster curses and Geto, I don't think Gojo would have been sealed. This is why that breakup scene between Geto and Gojo was so important. And I'm not talking about a breakup in relationship. I'm just talking about two best friends. It was very important because the same scene and what Geto represented, Gojo the cold realization that if he had followed in Geto's footsteps, a lot of the issues in the current Jujutsu Kaisen world would have been avoided. And that's why he thought of Geto right before he walked in and killed the higher-ups, saying it's his turn to discard his humanity to make a better future for his students, because as long as the higher-ups live, they will continue to wreak havoc on his dream of his students moving on and having a good life and replacing him in a world where gojo isn't needed. Sukuna, being the pinnacle or the roof of what it means to become a monster, recognized this in Gojo and even stated this to Kashimo after killing him, and they conversed in the afterlife. He said, "You guys would have been great friends with Yurozu, a girl that was in love with Sukuna, even though Sukuna cut her down the moment he met her." Gojo desperately wanted to teach Sukuna about love. Think about the time and date that he chose to fight against Sukuna. He wanted to convey his love and strength through his fist against the strongest character to ever exist. Now let's talk about my favorite character, Maki Zenin. Maki's whole character revolved around making a better life or a place where her sister can exist. When her father killed her heart in human form because of the higher-ups, Maki completely became a monster. At that very moment, her humanity was stripped away and she became the second coming of Toji. And with that, she cut down every member a part of her clan. Even when Megumi met Maki for the first time in 6 days, he instantly recognized she became colder, but she was strong, gaining the recognition from characters like Sukuna. Kashimo suffered from the same thing. He couldn't strip himself of his humanity to become a monster, and most people would say, nah, he was a cold-blooded killer, but his whole conversation with Sukuna tells us otherwise. He was trying to understand the concept of love, and Sukuna literally told him, love is worthless. You wasted your time. You were the strongest. People don't love and respect us because we're weak. They love and respect us because we are strong. And that's why anytime Kashimo killed anybody, Sukuna saw that as an act of love. He had his first moment after killing his first person in the Culling Games when he was thinking to himself, what am I doing? I just killed my first person. We're talking about missed opportunities. Don't get me started on Megumi. He could have been possibly one of the best characters of Jujutsu Kaisen. I digress. Let's talk about Yuta, because I think Yuta really was the face of this concept, outside of Sukuna, of course. At the end of his battle in the Culling Games, sitting next to Ryu, Yuta states that Uro says that she's seen people like him before, that Yuta is at the roof of his power and he won't become stronger, because to surpass his strength, he has to walk into the direction of becoming a monster. At that moment, we all knew Yuta's character was going to play a major role in this concept. Even in the conversation with URAUME and HAKARI, HAKARI mentions Yuta, how he was talking about something similar about holding on to his humanity. This character is the definition of holding himself back. In a short but sweet way, one of Yuta's conditions to his copying ability all revolves around him not wanting to kill people. If he was able to kill people and feed them straight to Rika, the potency of the copied abilities will be way stronger, making Yuta the strongest person in the verse, but Yuta isn't a character to do that. That's why when he was met with the dilemma of taking over his master's body, the whole fandom jumped up and went hype, because Yuta's words was, if I have to become the monster, then I will be, because everyone else is acting scared. We always made Gojo the monster. Now it's my turn. And we get the flashback right before Gojo walked into the room and killed every single higher up. And this was the exact moment I was expecting to get out of the URAUME versus the HAKARI fight, on top of more feats so I can argue against his character not beating Yuta. It would have been nice to see what created the monster HAKARI. What made him this type of person? Was it because he was a gambling addict, or was it because of traumatic events that he experienced in his life? We also could have got more dialogue that would have been so fire between the two characters, monster versus monster. This would have been a perfect fight for us to finally get some more insight on this whole thing about losing your humanity and becoming a monster. And if you're not rolling your eyes already, this kind of holds a lot more weight based on the extra pages that we got about URAUME and how they met Sukuna. URAUME was an abandoned child and Sukuna basically took them in, took care of them. Just imagine how hyped we would have been as a fandom if we would have got the URAUME extra pages during the fight between HAKARI and URAUME. URAUME's existence is what made Sukuna choose a different path if he was to ever be allowed to come back.